Hello, dear friends. Today we will talk about the usual food soda. Not, but in such an angle, in which fans of unconventional treatment methods are used to know about soda. That is, we will not talk about any reduction or increase in pH, since this is really not a scientific concept. We will talk about, I would say that this is a new discovery, which allows us to look at the soda in a different way, and allows us to understand why we can use this simple tool to fight age changes. I would like to remind you that at the moment, it is believed that age changes in a person develop due to chronic, systemic, slow-occurring inflammatory processes. How does this happen? Over time, as a person grows older, aging cells accumulate. Either this happens as a result of external influences, or as a result of programmed genetic mechanisms, or as a result of some circumstances. As a result, a certain number of cells accumulates in the human body, which do not die, but do not fully perform their functions. These aging cells are not only a useless ballast for us, but they also generate certain factors that damage the body. Monocytes gradually leave the vessel and look for enemies in all organs and tissues. Such monocytes are called macrophages. They are almost everywhere. In the liver, in the spleen, in the walls of the vessels. There are special macrophages in the brain. There are a lot of them in the skin, in the intestines. In general, everywhere where the immune system is present. The macrophages find the aging cells and begin to activate. They begin to produce interleukins. Interleukins are substances that can attract other cells of the immune system to help the macrophages. The most important inflammatory interleukins are tumor necrotic factor alpha, interleukin-1 beta, and interleukin-6. Thanks to the release of these interleukins to the place of accumulation of aging cells or damaged cells, other cells of the immune system are drained. For example, neutrophilic leukocytes are drained, T lymphocytes are drained. They begin to release factors that destroy cells, and in the end these aging cells die as a result of the death of these cells. Transcription by ESO. Translation by inflammatory response. Even more macrophages migrate to these places. Macrophages begin to produce even more intensively alpha-TNF, interleukins, as a result of which the inflammation continues. And it continues according to the mechanism of the defective circle, that is, its own. The body begins to damage its own tissues begin to throw out decay products. These decay products again provoke inflammatory processes and so on without end. As a result, a number of pathological changes are launched, which we see developing during old age. That is, these are neurodegenerative diseases. Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease are oncological diseases as a result of chronic inflammation. Heart vessel system failure in the form of atherosclerotic blisters and aneurysm is a deterioration of kidney function. It is inflammation of the joints. This is various arthritis and arthrosis. And this, unfortunately, is the activation of autoimmune processes. That is, against the background of chronic inflammation, the body begins to perceive some tissues that are its own as alien. And these alien tissues begin to produce factors. So, the system starts to manifest. To manifest rheumatoid arthritis, chronic disease, not specifically acidic colitis, various autoimmune diseases of the nervous system. The thing is that chronic systemic inflammation, besides all the rest, suppresses the function of T regulatory cells. T regulatory cells are the cells of the brain, lymphocytes that slow down excessively active immune response. If the function of T regulatory cells weakens, then as a result of this a person begins to overcome allergies and autoimmune diseases. Thus, chronic systemic inflammation, it launches a series of pathological changes that sooner or later destroy a person's health and ultimately lead him to death. Well, and of course, at the present time, efforts of doctors are focused on reducing the phenomenon of chronic systemic inflammation. Well, firstly, this is a lifestyle, and this is a diet. And, by the way, now there is a popular tendency to reduce the amount of carbohydrates. This is also due to the fact that carbohydrates provoke the process of inflammation. Tumor necrotic factor alpha, They are widely used to treat autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, Bechtereau's disease, psoriasis, the same Humira, for example. Also used are blockers. Interleukin, that is, they also reduce chronic systemic inflammation and also treat people with autoimmune diseases. But it turns out that it is possible to reduce the number of pro-inflammatory cytokines, alpha TNF, bad interleukins, by taking a simple soda. In 2018, the Journal of Immunology published a work that showed that it is possible to reduce the number of pro-inflammatory cytokines by taking a simple soda. The fact that 2 grams of soda per day is used to reduce the inflammatory activity of macrophages and increase the activity of T regulatory cells, which, as you remember, reduce the activity of autoimmune processes. Macrophages, as a result of soda intake, stopped producing T regulatory cells. Pro-inflammatory cytokines, that is, it was clearly shown a decrease in alpha TNF levels, 6 interleukins, 1 beta interleukin, as well as an increase in the activity of T regulatory cells. All this led to a decrease in the processes of chronic inflammation. Why did this become possible? It turns out that when taking soda, well, this is not a secret, the reaction here is very simple. Sodium is sodium HCO3 plus sodium acid HCl. As a result, we get simple sodium chloride salt, CO2, that is carbon dioxide, and H2O, water. And of course, soda cannot be sucked into blood in an unchanged form to such an extent that it somehow. So, in order for the pH to move seriously, for example, when taking soda, well, you probably need to drink a pack of soda. Well, I'm exaggerating, of course, but in fact, a gram of 1620 would probably have to be taken. But when it comes to 2 grams of soda, here, of course, no pH moves, even theoretically. But when it comes to 2 grams of soda, there is no mention of any pH shift in the blood at all. What's going on? This is the described reaction. Soda reacts with hydrochloric acid and binds hydrogen ions. Hydrogen ions have a positive charge. It is neutralized and turns into water, which is what happens to the stomach wall. And the stomach wall, the cells that produce the sodium acid, polarizes. Since they gave a positive charge in the form of proton H, it means they are neutralized. They received a negative charge. A negative charge was formed on them. This negative charge causes the polarization of the stomach wall, and the cells that cover the outer side of the stomach, they also cover all the internal organs. That is, if we cut the stomach and see what our internal organs are covered with, the spleen, the stomach, the intestines, we will see that there is such a thin film, which is called the abdomen, and this abdomen is covered with cells. Cells are called mesothelia, and these mesothelial cells, which are located on the stomach, receive a charge. They polarize. And the most interesting thing is that mesothelial cells, it turns out, can conduct this charge on other cells. Here, they conduct this charge on the cells that cover the spleen capsule. As a result, the spleen capsule polarizes and transmits this charge to the cells that are in spleen, to the macrophages and T regulatory cells. Of course, there are many cells in spleen, but in this case, we are interested in the T regulatory cells. T regulatory cells and macrophages. Macrophages polarize and change their properties. They become anti-inflammatory from inflammatory cells, and T regulatory cells simply begin to be activated. And as a result, their quantity and activity increases, and they suppress excessively active inflammatory processes. The novelty of this work is that it showed not only the ability of a small number of sodas to cause an anti-inflammatory effect, but it was also shown that mesothelia cells, that is, cells that cover the abdominal cavity, are able to conduct electrical signals almost in the same way. How do the cells of the nervous system do it, and what does it give us? We can, based on this knowledge, just take 2 grams of soda in the same way as the participants of this study took it. And they took it like this. 2 grams of soda were dissolved in a glass of water, 250 milliliters, and slowly drank. It wasn't said whether they drank it on an empty stomach or not, but the logic suggests that it's probably better to drink it on an empty stomach. Faster reaction between sodium acid and sodium. Why drinking should not be fast? Because when reaction of sodium and sodium acid in the stomach, carbon dioxide will be released, and the stomach may simply swell strongly, which in the end will lead to unpleasant sensations in the stomach. 2 grams of sodium in a glass of water. Okay. Transcripts of this video may help us to overcome chronic systemic inflammation and, therefore, to move away from old age and diseases associated with chronic systemic inflammation. Thank you all for your attention. Stay healthy. See you soon.